Hello and welcome back to the show. How are you doing? How are you? I know I obviously can't hear your responses now, but would love to hear them. Send me a message. Type it in the chat. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking. Today I am sitting in my hotel room, some instant coffee at hand and some water, looking out at the ocean. I'm currently in Thailand still. That is the picture I'm giving you. But today is, I'm trying these new formats of these solo episodes to see, not really going in with a plan, but like have my guides along here with me and just speak with what I feel called to. And that's how I've been doing a few of my episodes or a few of my videos on TikTok and Instagram of just like morning thoughts. And I guess we'll go there. I never know like where it's going to go. And I think that's what we really get into what should be talked about is what is currently on our mind. So let's get into just getting our thoughts out there and getting into more of the format of not planning so far in advance. And this might look like not planning your content or not planning, the next year or not planning, what you're going to do that day. And I'm not saying like not to plan. Like we do essentially need to have some sort of structure and plan in our lives kind of loosely to know what we're doing, where we're going. I'm such a believer in like vision boards too, of like having an overall, theme of where we're going. But I do think that there's so much power in allowing the universe to surprise you and allowing the information to flow through you and not having that tight plan, that day-to-day schedule. And that's coming from a person that has I used to plan and micromanage my life to the fucking T. I was the queen of planners. I was the queen of lists. I knew what I was doing for the week. I was planning out my fun, planned out my work schedule, planned out my day of okay, this between this and this time, I'm going to do this and this time. I did that with I used to do that with morning routines too. Okay, 10 minutes of this, 15 minutes of that, and then we're going to go into this. And things started to shift for me slowly, and I realized once I stepped out of that really hugely masculine structure and allowed myself to flow a little bit, it's actually a way less stressful and much more fun and gives so much more surprise of what can come through. And I guess that is my approach for the year, basically. My approach is to be able to flow, to have this overall okay, this is kind of the direction of the ship that I am directing because we are in charge of our lives. I definitely believe that. We are, things can happen in our life to help us steer in certain directions. If we're way off course, I think that big life events will happen to help us steer back into place of what our soul mission is. But ultimately, we're here co-creating with the universe, with the energies, in this ether of space. This is why it's so important for us to meditate, to get into this ether, this plane of creation, of remembering that, what we're seeing around us is actually what we're creating. And that's so powerful to remember. So if we go into this, okay, this is my overall theme, or this is the direction of my ship, and this is where I want to point it. We automatically start doing things, or we should start doing things, that are going to get us there. So if we're really wanting to, say my ship is running this podcast, and I want to have a show that really helps people. This is also being recorded for my YouTube, so you can check out my YouTube channel if you'd rather watch it. But say that that is where my ship is directed. Like, I want to create a supportive show for people that is going to give value to from whatever my experiences are. That's the direction. But how I'm going to let that flow is not having a tight schedule of like, oh, this is my posting schedule. This is, when I have to post every Mondays and Fridays or whatever, and get into this like rigidity. Instead, I let myself, say, okay, I want to commit to this. So I would like to show up once a week. How is that going to look? Maybe that's going to look like, inspiration that comes on a Tuesday and then I post it on a Thursday. Something like that, where you have the direction of the ship, you know where you're going, but you're not so tight to be like, this is how it has to be done. No, I'm going to let the inspiration come to me. And I'm going to do it when I feel like I have something to talk about. So that's where we can kind of flow into these things where, we have the direction of our ship. Yes, we're in control. We're the captain. I'm the captain now. But it's true. You are the captain. But this is how it goes. And this is where we can get confused on like, how much do I try to control, or how much do I plan or work with energy or co-create. And it's really about this kind of like ebb and flow, give and take kind of thing where it's like, there's not a rule or structure or, a book that you follow for this. It's like your own personal guidance. And that's where people like, I know it freaked me out at first, being like, what do you mean? I want to follow something, so then I get there. There's no roadmap. Like, you are your own roadmap, which is quite exciting, but also can be very intimidating because you're like, what? How do I know the way? I don't know the way. But you do. So this is the flow of the structure, I guess. And I think this is how we can flow throughout our day, whether that be with our routines throughout the day or where we're going to go. Maybe you committed to yourself to be like, you know what, I'm going to commit myself to my health and my well-being, so I'd like to move my body once a day. And that can be your statement. And maybe you wake up and you're like, man, I'm freaking sore, so I'm going to stretch. That's my movement. Or you wake up and it's a beautiful day outside. It's so sunny. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to take a walk. And that's how I'm going to move. So it's getting out of like the rigid structure of doing the same things over and over because that's what we felt like we committed ourselves to. You can have something set in place where, okay, I have a busy schedule and 6 a.m. is, 6 to 7 a.m. is the only time that I have to work out. I have to work out in that space because I go to work, I have kids, this and that. Okay, that is your container, but where you flow into it is how you want to move. Do you check in with yourself? Do you feel like you need more flexibility? Do you need to stretch? Do you need to move more? Do you need to sweat it out? Do you need to jump it out? So it's like letting yourself have that flexibility and not rigidity. So you have the structure there, but then you're able to flow. And that's really the balance between like that feminine and masculine energy where, we hear all the time of like, oh, the divine feminine, the divine masculine. You're like, what the fuck does that mean? It's honestly where everyone is masculine and feminine. And the masculine, in such simple terms, there's way more to go into it. This isn't my expertise. But how I understand it, and in my experience to apply it to my life, is the masculine is the structure and the feminine is the flow. So we have to have the structure in place to be able to allow ourselves to flow. So maybe it's a block of time where you have free time or inspiration time. Like, okay, this is the block of time where I'm going to paint, I'm going to write, I'm going to record, I'm going to, whatever your craft is. That's the structure. And how you flow is like, okay, maybe the ideas aren't coming to me. Maybe I'm just going to do a brainstorm session. Maybe I'm going to reread something. Maybe I'm going to test out some color palettes, or maybe I'm going to test out new video format, whatever it is. So that's how we can apply those things, of having that structure, having that vision of where we want our life to go. But then we let that kind of divine inspiration, that flow, that freedom come in and help guide us. Because really, it's like when we tap into, what the magic is of the day and be present in that moment, there's a lot of guidance, inspiration, magic that comes through if you allow it to come through, instead of like, no, I'm doing it this way. This is the way I was going to do it. And be very, stronghold in your vision, instead of being like, actually, no, like a being is trying to help you, give you an idea. The universe is being like, hey, ping, this is an idea, go for it this way. And you're like, no, you have blinders on, and you're like, no, I can't do that. I'm doing it this way. That's how we can kind of get in our way. So it's really letting ourselves flow and fluctuate and have that space to, just kind of be able to relax within that space. So those are my little thoughts of today. And I want this podcast or these episodes to be super helpful and give you a different perspective. If you ever have any questions or like a certain format or thoughts, or you want me to expand on something, please reach out. You can message me on Instagram. You can drop a comment if you're watching this. Give me a thumbs up on YouTube. You could subscribe. Just send me a message. Send me a little love. If you feel, if this resonated, you can also send this to somebody if you feel like this will resonate with them. So I hope you have an amazing day. It's a little short episode, and send you lots of energy if it's morning or night or midday driving. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of boost and a restructure of how you think that you should be doing things, but allow yourself kind of some freedom of how that can actually come about.